This is a difficult video to make today because I have some sad news. Yesterday, Harold Feinstein was called home. He passed away at the age of 84 at his home in Merrimack. For those of you who have followed the show over the last year know that he has been a big part of what we've done around here. I had an amazing opportunity to go up to his home, fly up to Boston, drive to Merrimack, and visit Harold and talk about his work. We originally were going to do it just as an interview for the show, and it turned into a bigger project. There was so much stuff. I thought that it would make much more sense to do more of a documentary scale project out of this, and we're still working on that. And Harold has not been in good health for a while, and I suppose that we knew this was coming, but just, it's always a surprise. What I want to do today is a video to talk about this. I want to do a little bit of a eulogy for Harold, but first I want to show you some clips because I think this puts some context around it. I was going through my footage that we shot in December, and obviously it was a very emotional thing, and I was going through, and as an editor I'm trying to find little clips that are sage comments of the great photographers speaking. Of course, Harold does do a lot of that. But I thought it would be fun to just kind of show you more Harold. And one of the things that you have to understand about the way we filmed this is we did it in their home, in their dining room. So we were at the dining table, and Harold's wife Judith would bring down boxes of prints. And Harold and I were going through them, and I was filming him talking about them. I would prompt him occasionally with questions, but he was, remembering all kinds of things and talked a lot about process. And I think that was really, the amazing thing of it all. And I do need to set this first clip up. This is very informal. We're all sitting around, and what I wanted to show you is that Harold had a wonderful sense of humor. And these were really loose, and we were really having fun on a couple of them. Harold has a huge affinity for ice cream. And anyway, at one point he was in the mood and had requested that we take an ice cream break, and his wife said, hey, why don't you guys look through 2 more images and then we'll reset the table and get this. And that's where this starts, and that's why he's saying, every time I ask for ice cream and chocolate, you tell me later. And it just shows Harold, because then he makes a crack as we get back into the photos that is just perfect, and I think it really summarizes Harold. I also have some footage of him talking about teaching, because I think that's important to understanding what he was like as a person and to what I'm going to say in the second part of this. And then some other things that I have him talking on, and one of these is just a voicemail message that is just really special to me. In February, I was in New York, and we were working on phase 2 of this documentary project, and I was filming people that had worked with Harold during his career to get some other voices. And one day, it was my last day in New York, I decided that I would go get some B-roll in Coney Island. And so I took my camera, and I got on the train, and I had left a message with Harold and Judith and said that I was on my way to Coney Island, and I was going to see if there's anything they wanted me to get. And as luck would have it, I'm on the subway. He left this on my answering machine, and it's Harold. So anyway, let's go ahead and roll these, and then I'll come back and talk a little bit about Harold.
It's every time I ask for ice cream or chocolate or what have you, it's always later.
No, actually.
This is like
well, I'm in the moment. I'm a photographer.
Okay.
who makes a really mean egg cream soda.
Yeah,
I'll have you know.
I heard. He's never made me one. I want you to know that in 27 years.
I think you guys need to get some ingredients and put this guy to the test. See if he can still make an egg cream.
Oh, I know I could. But we have to be on the corner of Marcy Avenue and Broadway.
It's location specific.
Yes.
Yeah, you.
Because
Tastes better there.
because twice a day you had a crowd emerging from the elevator trains.
That's the question. This is Coney Island, obviously.
Well, the truth is, I don't think
Yeah.
when I'm photographing. At least I'm not consciously thinking. But at that time on the beach, I'd have my camera with me, and at that time, not everyone had a cell phone with a camera or a camera. And so these young people I remember calling to me, "Hey, mister, take my picture." And "Hey, mister, take my picture" is a wonderful photograph. And these young people's enjoyment of being photographed by me, and that lovely woman in the front holding what is called a portable radio, which is bigger than a console now is, a gift.
Did you pose them at all, or did you
Not at all. I just walked over to
lay down on
them
that guy?
like they said, "Hey, mister, take my picture."
And years later, you got a phone call.
Oh yes, I got a phone call coneful. I'd like a coneful of ice cream.
God, that was awesome.
Is that how teaching began with you?
Yes. Oh, yes. I'm a natural teacher. I mean, I love teaching. I know I've heard that many artists are begrudging about teaching, but it was through teaching and the relationship with the various students that I found my own voice. And there were some classes that someone taped, and when I read the transcriptions of those tapes, they're beautiful. And I'm looking to teach right now. Hello, hello, hello.
You are teaching right now.
I started to
What?
say, I think so.
You are teaching right now.
That's true too. But welcome to my classes. It'll help you and it'll help me. And whether you're a beginner or a professional, come on over.
Do you still have questions at your age now?
And how?
Sure.
I mean, I find one of the most important attributes of age that I am experiencing is realizing how much I don't know. And I think, and maybe one of the reasons I believe in reincarnation is that I'll need another life at least to get to know all there is to know,
Right.
or even a semblance of it.
Harold was obviously a very special individual, and I have been really lucky and fortunate in my life to have, from time to time, been able to meet my heroes. And I've met some great photographers that I've had the opportunity to thank for the work that has touched my life. And I had that opportunity with Harold, but Harold stands apart from the other people. He was extra special. I say that not just because of the tone of what we're talking about today, but I say that because I believe that I got to spend a lot of time with Harold, and obviously that had a deep impact. And I got to ask him questions about work that I loved and understand his thinking behind it. And when we lose somebody, especially somebody close to us, it hurts, and there is obvious grieving that goes on. And this is always, I guess, an interesting subject to me, because we all have to deal with our own mortality. I mean, we all, there's no cure for death. We all have to deal with it someday. And it's not something we talk about every day because it's kind of dark, but it's something that we all have to face. And when we see somebody that we love face that, the grieving starts. And that's totally normal, it's totally natural, and it's part of being a human. And I grieve along with Harold's wife, Judith, his friends, Max and Kathleen. They're all very important people to me. They've known Harold a long time. I just have known Harold a little bit over the last year. And I feel sadness with them because I know it's going to be hard for them. It's hard for me. It's hard for anybody whose life is touched by somebody. And the reason I say this is because I think he's already given us the answers to some of these questions of grief. For me, I'm not worried about Harold at all. I can tell you, beyond any shadow of a doubt, Harold is somewhere right now in the next life with whatever the equivalent is to his camera and a Nathan's hot dog, having a ball. That's Harold. I have no doubt about that at all. You know, this is just a shell that we use while we're here, and we move on someday. And what's interesting to me too is, you know, when we all know that we can't take things with us. Our life here is fragile, and we move on to the next world. And what's important is not what we own or how much money we make or how successful we've been. What's important is what we've contributed, how we've treated other people, how we've treated our families, and how we've loved people. And that is the important part. And in getting to know Harold, and a lot of the discussions that we had, it's not as if, you know, here's Harold Feinstein and then the camera and the photography, this is something that he does. With Harold, it's all one thing, and he was always talking about that. Everything is the process. The camera and the photography is an extension of his soul. It's the act of creating, and he called it the gift when we were talking. And his point being is that, you know, having this gift of being able to make things A lot of people don't know what to do with that. And I look at myself sometimes, and I have a hard time knowing what to do with that. I think we all do. I'm very self-conscious of my own work. I'm extremely critical. I put an enormous amount of pressure on myself to do stuff. Even in doing this show, I get really nervous about sharing things when showing images on the show that I've done. And when you look at Harold, it's not about that. It's about the process and the passion behind it. And it shows in his work. It shows in these photographs. With Harold, I see the photographs as being kind of these endpoints. They're the legacy that's left. But the real story is what happened to get that photograph and what led into it. And you can see in these photographs Harold's tremendous passion for people, his passion for life, his passion for creating things, his passion for photography, just all of that. I have never met somebody more positive in my entire life. Harold has not been well in the last year. He's had a lot of medical problems, and my gosh, he's in his 80s. He had room to complain and be a crotchety old guy, and he wasn't. He was hilarious. He was fascinating. There were some moments, and I treasure those, and they're special. Anyway, my point being is I think with the sadness and grief is not to be sad for Harold. It's okay to be sad because we miss him, and as I believe, we're not going to see, or I won't see him again for a while. Maybe one day, and that's hard to cope with, and we're sad because we miss that person, and I think that's part of being a human being. I want to wrap this up by saying a few things. First of all, I want to thank those of you who watched the show. A couple weeks ago was Harold's birthday, and he turned 84, and I did a video wishing him a happy birthday, and I asked that people, rather than leave a comment necessarily, is leave a birthday greeting for Harold in the comments. And later on, after a few days, really after a day, I talked to Judith, and she said that they were so touched by that and honored by it, and she said that Harold's eyes were full of tears and he just couldn't believe it. And every couple hours he would ask her to bring the page back up, and he wanted to read and see if there were any new comments on there, and he was enormously touched that you guys were wishing him a happy birthday. And some people said that, I love your work, you've been a big influence, and that meant a lot to Harold. So I wanted to share that with you because I haven't told you that, because we really haven't come back around to this yet, and I think that's important to note. Harold, I'm going to miss you, buddy, and it was an absolute honor to work with you. You taught me more than a few things, and I don't even know what to say thanks. I know that you don't do things to get thanks and recognition, but you're very well respected and very much missed here. Anyway, that's about all I got, folks. It's been The Art of Photography. I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.
I guess you're enjoying yourself on Coney Island. How wonderful. I know Harold wishes he could be there with you.
But in fact, I am.
Harold lives in the spirit of Coney Island.